It's Stella from Meeple University, and this is Darren. And we are super duper 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 excited to have Cole here with us. Hello, Cole.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Cole is the co-designer of Stardew Valley, the board game. It's like Stardew Valley, the video game. Well, the board game feels similar. Is probably one of our favorite video games, like ever, like
It certainly
forever.
it certainly was a game that worked really well for us through the pandemic, and I think we've mentioned that in a few videos as well. Having a sandbox, side by side cooperative game that we were able to just sit in front of and while away those weekends where we were trapped
That's correct.
inside.
That's correct. And the board game feels similar, but it is a little bit more challenging, which we're going to discuss a little bit later. But for you who has played or haven't played, we do have the video, the review video for Stardew Valley, the board game, and also the how to play video for it, which Cole has kindly checked all the rules correct. So
Yep.
if we did anything wrong, that's on Cole. I'm kidding. So while in the background, we actually loading up Stardew Valley, the board game, and Taran, he is playing as Johnny O'Farmy. Yes,
Johnny O'Farm.
Johnny O'Farm, because he wants to have a Johnny O'Farmington. I think you mentioned it in the other videos. Cole, Cole, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
How is it your day? You are in sunny U.S. California.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm based in California. Concerned Ape is up in Seattle, close
Right.
to Seattle. So
Oh, it's not too far.
yeah, so we're he's doing what he does is continuing to develop the game and work on his next project, Haunted Chocolatier, and my role is just to kind of help him out with all the things that need to happen in addition to that, so that he can focus on what he's doing.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we actually have prepared a few questions for Cole, and some of these questions are coming from our viewers. So I put a questionnaire in the YouTube channel, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna introduce Cole. What is there any questions? So some of the questions are coming from them. The weird one, the good ones from us. No, I'm kidding. The good ones are from them, and the weird ones from Tarrant.
I will try not to
Yeah.
give any weird answers. How's that?
Yeah. So we'll stop blabbering, and this is time for you to share. First question. This is not a trick question. Are you a fan of Stardew Valley, the video game?
Yes, yeah. I was looking at how, like, I don't think I put as many hours into it. Obviously, as some of the super fans have played it a ton. But even before I got involved with working with Concerned Ape and working on the Stardew board game, I had put in a good amount of time, and I was like, it's a great game. You can just kind of get lost in it and relax
Oh,
and
yes.
enjoy yourself, sort of do whatever it is that you want to do. But I have two little kids, one of which is 5 right now, and so my video game time is pretty tight
Yes,
these
yes.
days. But I did then go back when I was researching for the board game development and play it just a ton. I was playing it on Switch, which is just really nice for sort of the pick up and play,
Yeah. Everywhere.
ability of it. So I put in a lot of hours there just to kind of do my research.
It's great to know that you actually love the video game as well. I think I wouldn't probably think otherwise. This is like, I mean, you are a professional designer, but it's part of it. I feel like in this board game community, it's a passion project as well. It's kind of like you want to like it, like to do with that before playing it, before involved in it.
Yes.
So on to the next questions. Based on that, playing video games a lot, how did you end up designing Stardew Valley, the board game?
Yeah, so it was actually a mutual friend of ours that introduced us, and I think he was talking to Eric at one point and said, "Oh, would it be interesting to maybe make a board game?" And Eric said, "Yeah, that could be kind of fun." And then so we were introduced. Actually, playing Stardew, the video game, is how I met Concerned Ape, and we were chatting together about what a board game could be and how Stardew sort of lends itself to that, like the turns and the days and all of the things. There's just so much content to work with in terms of making a board game design. And so we just sort of started kicking around ideas, and we actually used Tabletop Simulator quite extensively during the development. Because we could put assets in there and then tweak it very quickly and play test it together, even though we were not in the same space.
Yeah,
so,
it's great like that, Tabletop Simulator or Tabletop. I think Tabletop Simulator is easier to change. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was just a really great tool to use, and we just kept iterating, and it took about a year to put together a design that we were really happy with, and then another year to actually do the development, fleshing out all the artwork and all of that stuff.
That's pretty quick, I think, in terms of a big game that everyone loves like this. That's pretty quick. You must have put really a lot of time into those 2 years.
Yes, it was. Just thinking a lot. I was, working full time at the time too, while I was developing that part. So it was my nights and weekends, and just kind of thinking about it at lunch, and just going, how can I make this better, and what should it be, and
definitely a passion project.
Yes, very much.
There's a lot of content in the source material that you can draw on.
Yeah,
there's a tremendous amount, and it just, what do you keep, and what do you, how do you simplify it so it works as a board game? It was a lot of questions like that.
Yeah. Well, let's actually get to the Taryn's questions. Terrence actually did a really great question. Taryn?
So I think the biggest thing for me, there's a lot of, you've drawn all the major parts of the video game in, so the farming and the mining and the friendship. What was the hardest part of the video game to make it work in a board game context?
Yeah, the first thing I was trying to establish when we first started talking about the development was what I consider the Zoom level. Like, how close are you? Are you just on your farm? Are you just managing a plot of land? Is it just the town, or is it the whole valley? And once we figured out, it really did need to include the whole valley and all of these different aspects, then it means each of those aspects has to be abbreviated. You can't get into all of the intricate detail of all of the things because there's just too much, right? And so, it's like, well, farming is a thing and fishing is a thing. And we kind of approached each of those as like, we thought of them a little bit as like mini games or mechanics that make you feel like you're doing the Stardew fishing. The thing that was the hardest was the mines. There's like a whole game over there in the video game of how far do you go, what do you take, what do you get out of it? And I tried a ton of different iterations, probably went through at least 8 major iterations of what the mine was going to be. Some of them were so elaborate they could have been games on their own. So we had to simplify it down. But that was the mines was the most challenging of all the video game source material to get into the board game.
And I can certainly see that. I think exactly like you said there. I can see that where you ended up with the mine and with the different levels and how you went down and managing to make it harder but make it simple. It's quite good what's come out with, and sort of you get that randomness of the mine with the grid and the rolling. So I can see how it would have been challenging, and I'm sure you're satisfied with the result.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the fishing is probably a bit easier because it's fishing. You just randomly things from the bag, and then the mine is, I can see that. But I think it's well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoy was the fact that the game has the event deck, and it has item deck. So it's got all these different decks, and through that you get to see all of like the small elements of the game that maybe wouldn't have been their own mechanism. Was it deliberate to put mechanisms in that had these decks in order to give you the ability to flesh it out with as much source material as possible, or did it just sort of fall out as a happy accident?
I would say I'm partial to cards because I like the sort of variety that they can introduce, especially when different decks are sort of interacting with each other. I remember at one point in the development of the game, Eric said, it's like, I want there to be more stuff, like more stuff that you can get, that can drop, that you can collect. And he said that, Stardew Valley has a lot of these little items and stuff that goes into your inventory beyond just resources. And so I remember revisiting that, and that was kind of where the item deck and the epic item came out as these rewards or these sort of random bits. And it also allowed us to do stuff like kind of include some of the recipes for cooking, for example, where that whole cooking mechanic, there wasn't really room for that in the board game. There's just too much stuff going on. So
expansion.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But it was those different decks allowed for like the events to be represented and the collectibles and the decorations, because there's not really a decorating component in the board game, and that's a big part of, I think, what makes Stardew fun, to customize and place things around. So it kind of evolved as we gain more ideas for what those could be.
It's one of those design that you kind of like, you start here, you don't know where it's going to end up evolving. And then,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the expansion things. There's questions about expansion
Oh, sure.
From our viewers. But let's get to something a little bit more light for now. So, Cole, how do you describe Stardew Valley, the board game, with emoji?
So I would summarize it with you got to have like a little smiley face that represents all the people that you meet.
Which smiley face? The big one, the small one, the little one?
Oh, maybe all three, from big smile to medium to frowny face from the villagers. Maybe a little gift icon.
Yeah, like that.
And a heart are the ones, and then of course like a tree. So much of it is trees and nature, and connecting with the natural world as you farm. That's what I would say.
Okay, that's great. That's great answer. Heart is very important. Tree. I would thought that there would be fishing or fish.
Oh.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. So how do you describe yourself with emoji?
The face I tend to use a lot, and I think it describes my personality, is the happy face with the star eyes.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
When I'm really into something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you about this, and I'm just excited about it, and that's my spirit animal emoji.
Just the one emoji. You can choose more than one.
And then the other ones would probably be a dinosaur and a spaceship, because I really like science fiction, and maybe a wizard too, because there's some fantasy in there as well. And I like dinosaurs.
I love it. So you would watch sci-fi, Star Wars or Star Trek, or both?
Oh, it's definitely both.
Yay! Correct answer. I'm in the middle of watching Star Trek Discovery. I watched the other ones.
Oh, nice.
Picard, Strange New World. So, yeah.
Yep, you just have to watch original series.
Yeah, I just have to watch original series.
I'm listening to a podcast right now called Enterprise Incidents. that
What is that?
talks
Let me write it down.
about all of the original series episodes. A friend of mine who's a filmmaker turned me onto it, and like, yeah, it's such a fun way to experience the original series because they talk about the sort of politics and the all of the brainy stuff that goes into all those episodes, and it's really fun.
That sounds like a fun one to listen to.
Yeah.
I still have to watch the Star Trek, the cartoon one, Lower Deck. I think it's called Lower Deck.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one floating around, but I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Now, this is the next question. Who is this?
Oh, I can't see it clearly. Otherwise,
Tarrant, you need to probably get away so that it's clear. This is a Star Wars question.
It's from the Mandalorian.
Yes.
I know her as, is it Cara Thrace from Battlestar Galactica?
Yes. I'll take that. It's a Mandalorian. So this is Bo-Katan for Chris from the Mandalorian. So you are a true Star Wars and Star Trek fan for sure. This was not a test. I do like sci-fi. I do like fantasy as well. We even have a wizard puppet here that we use sometimes in our
nice.
ending. Yeah. All right, we got a few questions. Let me just go through. What's your favorite and least favorite character in Stardew Valley?
Ooh, okay. So I never really cared for Haley because she's kind of she's not always very nice, and then
George is not nice.
Yeah, that's true. I think she's the one that, like, when I first started playing, insulted me first, and I was like, "Whoa! I just gave you a present, and you're being mean to me." Yeah. Actually, a lot of their quotes that they say when you give them something they don't like are pretty rough. But the character that I think I like, I really like Linus because he's very grateful, and he's kind of just living his life.
In the tent somewhere.
Yeah, he just has a very simple way and some bits of wisdom. So I think that was probably one of my favorite characters.
So, the next question is based on that. What is Linus' favorite item? At least one.
Oh. No. Let me go to the wiki real quick.
No. Okay. It's cactus. Cactus, pretty sure.
I end up giving him a lot of forageables that I come across.
Yeah. I think cactus he likes, but then Haley might either. I always get confused. Haley and Leah. It's either wine or diamond. I think.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. And George, I forgot.
So I'll tell you something funny.
Vegetables.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The leeks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
When I was developing the board game, I had to kind of map out all of the likes of the villagers and then see how to fit it to item types rather than specific items.
Yeah.
And that really messed up my mind in terms of remembering what they actually like in the video game, because I was like, this person doesn't like fish. I was like, oh no, that's not true. They just, I got it all tangled up. So yeah.
This person likes all crops.
Exactly.
That's actually true. I mean, I'm actually quite glad that the board game has that rather than a specific one. It would be so hard.
It would be, yeah. It just, the types work pretty well, but they do kind of blur the lines as far as how it connects exactly. I tried to be very inspired by what the video game did, but you had to kind of bend things just a little bit.
It's a reflection of how much a lot of the mechanisms had to be simplified. Like the farming goes from, you can see over here on the right is my huge farm that I have to go through a whole lot of effort clearing and planting, and then it turns into a pure time mechanism, but it works with the 16 round game and likewise with the simplification of the gifts.
Exactly. Yeah. Farming is extremely simple in the board game, but it's kind of meant to just fit into all the other things that are happening and be something you can kind of depend on. You're like, okay, I know what we're doing with this. Unless a crow shows up, I'm okay.
Now we're talking about the mechanic again. Let me take the next questions to the mechanic. So, this is actually one of the fans that loves the video games and the board game. Any particular reason to make the board game tied to win while the video game is different? Maybe if there is a way to get the actual item that you need from the deck, for example.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation around when we were doing the testing, how challenging to make the board game. And I remember when I was talking with Eric about it, he was saying that he didn't develop Stardew Valley to be, a simple, easy game. It's like he wanted it to be something that, provides a lot of opportunities and options and challenge, and you can kind of take it as far as you want. And so we played the board game over and over and over again. And a lot of time his feedback was, I think it's just it's too easy. It's not challenging enough. We want a game where, especially because it's cooperative, like you lose the first time, second time it's really close. And then by the third time you're getting, maybe you win, but it's really close. That was the experience that we hoped for. And it's interesting seeing the response, because there are a lot of folks that picked up the game and said, wow, this is really hard. And we haven't figured out how to beat it yet. I think it kind of brings you back to a cooperative game. If it's challenging and you're like, okay, next time we can get it. Now we know what to do. And that's what this is intended to invoke.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Certainly for me, when a cooperative game is really easy to beat the first cooperative board game is really easy to beat the first time, it does take away some of the motivation to do it again, unless there's a way of making it harder.
Yeah, yes. I think I agree with Aaron as well. You don't want it to be too easy with the board game. As you said, there's just anticipation. Oh yeah, we'll do this again next time. So it's not like, is that it? We beat it. That's it. So this can entice us to play again and again and again. And I don't know, is there any tips and strategy to beat the board game, by the way?
Oh, yes. I can definitely provide some of those. I was going to say, some of the inspirations for the board game did come from a couple of games which are very challenging, which is Eldritch Horror and Robinson Crusoe. And
so hard.
so those are, and we thought, what if we make a game where you are working together to accomplish a thing, but it's instead of everything being terrible to you, everything kind of helps you. And that means you need to start really far back, because your progress will accelerate as you go. Yeah, I think a lot of the feedback or the tips and tricks revolve around learning the best way to acquire those resources and to be, very efficient with your actions. Because sometimes when people are first learning the game, they say, well, I'll just run over here and go to the community center. And whereas later you might learn, oh, wait, let's wait until I can go to the community center and take a whole bunch of stuff with me, instead of wasting a turn in the beginning. Just doing So a lot of it is, I think, action economy and knowing what's in the different decks is really helpful too. And that doesn't come until you've played it a handful of times to say, oh, there's a card that can help me do this thing that we need to do. So I might get that, I just need to focus on something.
Having a
that's
pawn,
really
it's like spouse is handy to have another free action to have a spouse if you find it.
Yes, that one's really powerful. Some people do a modified version where they make certain buildings available, like the
shed,
farmhouse that gives you this the spouse, because that one gives you the pendant, the mermaid pendant.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I think last time we played, we found it as a result of one of our epic item bonuses.
Oh, nice.
Right, yeah.
Yes, we enjoyed the shed. It made us not have to think very hard about inventory.
Oh, yeah.
It would be a very different game without that shed as well. Because
Yeah.
not being able to hold all that much forces it's both action economy and timing of things.
And also, because we have the shed, I'd be like, okay, let's just like not get rid of the first season forage because there might be a bundle that is still unflipped that might need it, which ended up that we had that bundle that
Nice.
needed spring. Oh no, crow. Yes. We always like wondering, I guess you can't really tip too much because then, we don't discover ourselves what needs to be done. What the strategy, how to win, and so on.
Yeah.
And then another game question, bug meat. It seems to be common in video game, but not the board game. Will there be more perhaps in the expansion or third print? Would that be balancing things out though, or not really?
Yeah.
Someone's asked that.
Someone was frustrated by their lack of bug meat.
Yes, this kind of touches on one thing that was interesting, which is just people's expectations because they're very familiar with the video game going over to the board game. And that same thing, it came up with regards to the feel of the board game, is like kind of intense, whereas the video game can be much more relaxed, right? And the bug meat, so in the second printing of the game, we did revise the mine deck just a little bit to make bug meat easier to come across, because it was not intentionally made sparse, but there was a lot of other balancing things kind of going on. And it's funny because I had play tested a tremendous amount, and it didn't really come up as an issue until it kind of went out in the world and people said, "Oh my gosh, the mines are impossibly hard." And I went, "Are they really?" And I went through and I remember I play testing the mines only over and over and over and over again at different player counts, trying to figure out what is the problem that they're hitting. And what I discovered is there's about 10 to 15 cards in that 40 card mine deck, which can be really painful. And it doesn't break the game, but if you're spending a couple turns with no results or very poor results, and you're just stuck on that level, it's really painful. And so we went back in and said, "Oh, why don't we just soften those cards and make it a little less, terrible."
Forgiving.
Yes. Just because, we want it to be challenging, but we don't want a situation that feels frustrating. And I think those cards in particular were doing that. So there is a bit more bug meat down in the mines.
Yay! There you go. That's the answer. So we wanted to, sorry.
So that was always one of those things in the video game when you needed bug meat. It's just, I'm already a superstar at fighting enemies, so I'll just go down to level 10 and
bug meat.
kill a bunch of mosquitoes for a while.
Go harvest.
You mentioned it briefly already, that the second print run. So I heard that there's going to be a third print run, which is very exciting. Is that correct? And when that's going to happen?
Yes, that's what we're working on right now. So, a lot of it is just sort of the logistics of everything that's been happening in the world, and the boring stuff like prices going up for materials and shipping complexities. But we are working on getting another print run set up, and so that it can be available again. Hopefully, I don't know some of it's still being finalized exactly when it will be available, but I'm hoping, later this year. So
later this year. Okay.
Yeah.
So ETA later this year. I mean, this is already April, so it's not that far away.
Not too far.
And that's going to be the whole world.
Yeah, just assuming, nothing goes terribly wrong with these plans, but everything seems to be okay.
Yeah, that's good. Because a few people are like, "Oh no, I want to buy it. Like I can't find it anywhere." Or someone else say, "Oh, this is second-hand price, but that's like just so expensive." So
I know.
Yeah.
We were, yeah, we did not enjoy seeing kind of that. We did not intend for that secondhand market to go up with those really high prices because we love the board game. We don't think anyone should be paying $200 for it or whatever. You know, it's like we intentionally wanted it to be available and affordable to as many people as want it. And we're trying. That was the real challenge in going into the next print run is trying to make sure we could keep the price, down. Whereas prices have gone up across the industry. Really, it seems like.
About board games, so it seems that you also, you also design board. I know that you've designed other board games and you play board games. Firstly, what's your other design before Stardew Valley that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I did a couple of things. They were self-published originally. One was picked up by a company called Game Right. That game was called Gubs, and it's just sort of a short little simple card game with these cute little critters. I think it's available over in your part of the world through a company called Kanga Games.
Yep.
They might have done a small.
Maybe.
This was
kangaroo. So
yeah. They did, I think, a small print run of it, but I'm trying to reprint it myself. I now have the rights back to the game. And then another was a Kickstarter for a game called Web of Spies that was kind of like a spy roam around and try to outsmart your enemies. That one actually got picked up to be in this International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. So that was pretty fun.
There is a spy museum in Washington, D.C. That's awesome. I did not know that.
It's a really neat museum. I mean, it's really wild to see all of these little, gadgets. I don't know, spy and gadgets and stuff.
Wow, I gotta see it if I go back to Washington.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. It's very neat.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Okay, so good to know that you've got those designs, and that's the one that is it's still in distribution, or is that?
We're trying to. My wife and I are trying to self-print Gubs to bring that one back because it's a card game, pretty straightforward. We're hoping to be able to do it ourselves, but not sure when.
Will there be any differences in the third print run as well with the same one?
Some of the materials might change just a little bit, like kind of remains to be seen. We're still in the setup process of a lot of it, but I think the art and the balancing of the game are pretty well set right now.
Good, so we don't have to do another how to play video.
Yeah.
It's out there. So that is your design. And how about favorite board games? Do you have a particular one that might even inspire Stardew Valley a little bit?
So this is a tough question for me because I feel like I have games that I get really into for a while and I just play them until and then I move on and still come back to some of them.
Yeah. I guess your family as well. You've got family now.
Yeah. I've tried to. My oldest is 5, so she's still a little bit like. She told me, "Dad, you have too many board games." I said, "What?" Oh.
Has she got a lot of toys?
Yes.
Sometimes she gets into my board game stuff and starts, gluing it all to paper and, like making projects out of my leftover, prototyping bits.
Oh, but, that's good. You can have her help you with prototyping.
Yeah.
In the future.
Oh, she's eager to help me work on game stuff. And
that's awesome.
One game I played recently, I had a really good experience was the Jurassic Park Legacy board game. I had received it through the Kickstarter. I saw some bad reviews. I told my brother, let's get it out and play it, and we'll just try it. And we played it. He was visiting for a week. We played it every single day, all day long, until we got through every single scenario except for the last one. And it was just a tremendously fun experience, just doing it 2-player co-op like that.
Yeah, I do remember that one getting a bit of dislike.
Oh,
I don't
really?
remember why exactly,
Okay.
but I do remember when it came out.
All right. Well, are you sure this is not because of its dinosaur theme?
That was definitely part of why I liked it. I think
Yeah.
why it got bad feedback is that the way they scaled the game is the more players, the fewer actions each player had. And so I think at a 4-player game, you just didn't get to do as much as you would at a 2-player game. And it just made it really hard to coordinate all those characters. I think that was what it was. But
You fainted.
I did.
Sorry, I just realized that. Okay. I'm sure it's a good game. I mean, games are made differently so that different people with different likings likes the game. So there's always someone out there that loves the game. Some others don't like the game.
yes.
It happened that Stardew Valley, the board game, is loved by a lot of people.
Yeah. I think the
well
games,
done.
they can give you tremendously different experiences too. One person can play it and be like, "Wow, that was so neat what we did."
Yeah.
And I've played the same game with multiple people and had really bad experiences just by whatever comes up out of the deck or what we roll. So I think
Yeah,
some of
that's
that
true.
goes on too.
Like the first time you play, it's probably a learning game sometimes.
Mhm.
And then when you play it again, then it just gets better. By the way, we tried to get Cole to play Stardew Valley with us, but unfortunately we couldn't get him in because it's you got a special version of Stardew Valley,
Yeah,
which
I think I have
makes
the debug version installed or something, so
yeah.
they won't talk to each other.
Yeah, well, which is fine, which also takes me to the next question. So it sounds like, well, I know that you can like helping a little bit and know a little bit about Stardew Valley, the video game, which is made by Eric Barone. Barone, is how you say it. So how is it working with Eric, the
Oh,
Eric of Stardew Valley?
yeah, it's a lot of fun. He's a really thoughtful designer, and just when we were working together on the board game, he had such like his feedback was so accurate. He would look at all these things and say, "Oh, that's good, that's good. I'm not sure about this one part though. We should keep looking at that." Or he would have very specific feedback, and he was spot on, like really good accuracy. And so, a lot of times when I'm working with somebody who it's their creation, it can be difficult for them to tell me what it is, that they like or don't like about something in the design. But
Still like
I
everything.
think, yeah, he just really knew. He knows Stardew very well. He did all of the different parts of it himself, and so I think it just really gives him like good, just sort of wisdom across multiple disciplines.
Yeah.
And so it was really easy to work with him on the board game, and then towards the end of the board game, that's when he talked to me and said, "Hey, I could also use your help with all of this other stuff that I'm trying to do. Would you like to come on and join me?" And my role largely
How
is
exciting.
yeah, it's very exciting and it's fun. I just really enjoy being part of this Stardew thing. It really means a lot to a lot of people, and I feel very honored to have the opportunity to kind of take a lot of the small stuff off of his plate so that he can continue to focus on the development of the video game and Haunted Chocolatier, and just to be able to interact with such like a positive, fun fan base too. It's really special.
Oh, so there's something always. I think there's always development in the video game. Is that something that you can spoil?
Oh,
Maybe not. Maybe not. No, don't get yourself in trouble.
well, it's funny because he just is very much like a solo indie developer, and
Right.
so there are times when I see on Twitter something he's announced that I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know you were working on that," and so he follows his inspiration. He's very iterative and just a very easygoing guy. And I think that comes out. He has a lot of love for Stardew, and that's what comes out in the game. And so
Yeah.
I
We
think
can
that
tell.
contributes to its success.
Well, you
Yeah,
both are awesome people and working on this awesome awesome game, video game, and board game. Uh, does he play board game?
He does. So
Yeah.
I didn't know that going into it, but no, he's very familiar with. I don't know. I've never not seen his board game collection, so I don't know which ones that he loves. But he was familiar with Eldritch, like I mentioned before, was one of the inspirations, and our mutual.
I find that very amusing that this that it's inspired by a game that just beats you down so much. Like Arkham and Eldritch Horror. It's a great juxtaposition.
Well, it's like the extreme that, and the extreme easygoing sandboxy game mixed together.
Yeah.
And then that's perfect, right? Well, that's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
So I am going to ask more about the board game. So will there also be a Skull Cavern or Desert expansion and a casino gamble mechanic in maybe Ginger Island in the future in the board game?
I've been asked about expansions, and it's really tempting because there is more video game content. It'd be fun to sort of flesh it out and capture some of that. Nothing is in the works at the moment because we also have a sort of a feeling that it's possible to clutter up a board game.
Yeah.
And I feel like the board game as it is has a tremendous amount of just stuff.
Yeah, like a stack of item deck and stuff. Luis's purple pants.
Yes, yeah. There's just so much stuff, and a handful of times I have like bought the expansions to games I really love, and then I'm like, oh, this kind of makes it like that much more complicated, and it's sometimes hard to get it to the table because I don't have like a consistent game group, for example, and learning the game plus the expansion rules just is kind of a rare thing. So I don't know. There might be something, but right now, nothing solid.
Yeah. I know this because this was asked by more than one person, and that would be my question as well. If there's an expansion, there's a die-hard fan out there that wouldn't mind putting the base game, learning the base game, maybe watch our videos and make it easier, maybe not, and then get the expansion out there and then feel more like immerse themselves in ourselves more.
Sure.
Like the video game. So I think there is a market out there, but it's also understand with the expansion can make it either complex or different, or like how much you want to put in there and so on.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting with Skull Cavern, for example. I mean, there's already a mining mechanism, but then Skull Cavern's more of a push your luck because you start from the top on every day. So it could be it'd be interesting whether putting another mine in there would feel like more of the same, or if you could make it into a whole new game.
Oh,
that's true.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot that just feels kind of like it would make a nice addition, to the game. Just trying to figure out how to like fit it in, or how does it, that's the part I haven't quite answered yet. So
yeah, no, that's okay. That's all right. We have to ask, because it's very exciting for diehard fans.
Yeah.
It's to know that that's coming potentially. Any thoughts on expanding marriage to having kids? That's also about mechanic and addition things. Somebody asked this, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, not yourself. It's the game.
Yeah. It was interesting coming up with what exactly does marriage do mechanically in the game. Originally, the win condition was my first thought. Oh, you have to make villagers like you, and then first person to get married is the winner or something like that. But it became like it's fun to pick a villager and have that be your spouse, and then to gain this additional actions were so valuable. So it really felt like a big, meaningful thing. I haven't thought about the children yet very much.
Yeah, like where does it fit? Does it need something else, or is it just a whole new mechanic, or can it grow in like I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I'm not a game
Yeah.
designer.
So you suggested there that the game wasn't even always cooperative.
Yeah, there was a moment in the beginning where it was like, is this a race for some kind of objective, or trying to get the most points? But I think we discarded the idea of not having it be cooperative pretty quickly, just because the feeling of when you play a multiplayer game of Stardew, you're getting on with your friends, you're all working toward the same goal. We wanted to preserve that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do love cooperative game, and that feeling of cooperative in Stardew Valley, I think is quite important.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it seems pretty deeply ingrained in just how it works.
Yeah.
I do always find it interesting where there have been times at separate games where I've read a rule book expecting it to be either cooperative or competitive and got to the end. Sometimes I've been like, okay, this feels like a competitive theme, and then I get to the end of the rule book and it's like, the winner is the person who does this, and I'm like, I have to read this whole book again because I was thinking of it in a different mindset.
Even mine.
Yeah.
Even Marvel Age of Heroes, I worked it out pretty quickly, but it was X-Men competing against each other to have fought the most.
Okay.
Oh.
That's like lots of Waterdeep. I don't know if you heard the classic Lots of Waterdeep. This is like Lots of Waterdeep 2.0. Basically, is they're being rethemed, and then they both are a really great game. So,
nice.
like worker placement and that.
I'm in the mine now.
You are in the mine now. I can't believe you fainted before, Taryn.
Yeah. I wanted to get to bed quickly.
Okay. Well,
It was faster to faint than to go away.
Oh, there you go. So, Cole, beside the video games, the board game, what else do you do for fun? Do you like watch series? We touch on this a little bit. It's like your life of dinosaurs and sci-fi.
Yeah. I mean, I read a lot because I'm trying to write some stuff. So I've been working on writing a book that I would like to publish. I'm not sure when, but it's just sort of a background thing for me right now. But I kind of dabble in a lot of things. Like I like to prototype board games. I like to make stuff. A lot of my time is taken up and my memory and brain power by the kids right now. So those hobbies just kind of get, squeezed into the moments that I have. But yeah.
Family time takes a lot of time. Happy time mostly.
Yeah, it's good, but it's a lot.
So what is this book's about?
So for a while, I was working on a project I thought would be really fun, and I still do, but I'm not sure what I want to do with it. It's a prequel to Jurassic Park. I'm a big Jurassic Park fan, and I thought it would be fun to see the whole lead up to the park, and I kind of crafted this dramatic story. You could call it kind of very elaborate fan fiction, but I was just working on that for a while and having fun with it. But I pivoted to something within the last year that is probably much easier to publish because it's just a fantasy story in a fantasy world. And I'm just exploring that and seeing what that becomes right now.
Yeah. And, it helps as well that you, although you've got lots of things going on, it helps that you love dinosaurs. So, well, since you are a writer, have you thought about doing Stardew Valley, the story, the novel or something like that with all the characters in it? That would be fun too, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so much stuff in the video game. There's actually, word count wise, there's I think something like 2 novels worth of writing that Eric did. Just all the dialogues and all the characters, and so it's it's interesting thinking about all the things that Stardew could manifest as. There is like a comic, like a graphic novel that was done that's really beautiful, and kind of a handful of things. One of the biggest things that we try to do though is make sure we're not spreading ourselves too thin, because it's really just Eric and there's like 2 or 3 of us helping him. That's pretty much the whole company. And we want to continue to focus on the video game and not degrade the quality of anything by trying to do too much different stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I admire that, and I respect that decision. And that means that we're expecting good things coming out from the video games and the board game.
Yeah.
Or maybe more.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that's basically it. That's my questions. Do you have anything that you'd like to share? Anyone you'd like to shout out to? Your, I don't know, your wife or your kid?
Well, it was really fun to see the videos you posted, and so thank you for those. It's just fun to see the board game is out in the world and people are enjoying it and having fun. That's my favorite part of making board games is watching people play them and enjoy themselves. So thank you for sharing that. That was really neat.
It's our pleasure. We love it. So that's it. That is the call. The call. It's the Eric, and then it's now the call of Stardew Valley, the board game. Thank you so much for spending time with us and some of these silly questions. And it's just like people are curious. I'm curious. I want to know more about this, and thank you so much for that. We hopefully will see you around. I'll be going to Gen Con this year, so if you're
cool.
going to Gen Con, then I'll be there. And Tarrant won't be.
I won't be.
It's got another day job.
Keeping the good fight at home. Thank you for your time.
And is there a way that you have a fan page or social media that you want people to come and follow you?
Not really. If they want to get a hold of me, have any questions, I can be reached through the Stardew Valley board game has a website. The contact page goes to me. I try to be pretty active on Board Game Geek too, because I just really love the community of questions and answers and conversations. So I'm on there as well.
Yeah, and once again, thank you so much, and we'll chat again soon, hopefully. Thanks, Cole.
Okay. Sounds good.
Bye.
See you later.